dragging the bottom for oh so long, but I can feel that power running strong. It's in the air, I can feel it now.
What is going on, Don't Unfriend Me Nation? Matthew Spear from the Don't Unfriend Me Show. I apologize. Usually we're not on in the morning, but I figured this was important enough before more people decide to gang up and pretend that they know what happened in Iran. I've been listening to a lot of commentators and content creators, and they got all on the bandwagon that Trump was acting completely irrational, that he was a pawn for Israel, that this was not an effective strike. And we told you all along. We broke it down hours after it happened because we don't need to wait for the fog of war, because we understand the weapon systems that are being used. We've spent a lifetime studying them. Leroy and I gave you spot-on analysis that was absolutely bang accurate. We're going to go over it. We've got a briefing for you. Come back in 3 minutes. Pete was fire. I think the dumb show was fire because we were fire before everyone else. Sorry, I'm gonna brag just a little bit. Happy birthday, Paul. Hey, folks, if we could get this shared on Twitter and all social media channels, we would absolutely appreciate it. Paul Rivera, happy birthday. Let's get this thing out here. This should be a good one.
Hey everybody, it's T.S. Dixon, author of The Woke Mind Viruses. And I want to tell you that I'm pleased to be part of The Dumb Show, the Don't Unfriend Me show that you can find every weeknight at 7 p.m. on social media at The Dumb Show or on their website, thedumbshow.com. See you there.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, and Olivia. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.
Back again after last night. Matt Demo giving us $11 last night as our final donation. I want to say thank you to Matt. I've got a goal of 300. I don't know. That's going to be up to you folks if you decide that we're going to hit it this morning as well. But I'll tell you, we're pretty excited over here. I haven't had a chance to talk to Leroy. Leroy is is out of pocket right now doing what Leroy does. But I can tell you with no equivocation that the coverage that we have given you all over the last few days has been dead balls accurate. From breaking down the B2 and going into Iran, how they deployed, the fact that we were one of the first sources to break that the B-2s were actually en route, and talked about Diego Garcia. And then once the strikes happened, explained how they inserted and why and how they were going to go with refuelers, with going under the cover of civilian air traffic, and also weaving patterns, moving around Russian and Iranian radar systems, but more importantly, European radar systems, because it's not just the media here in the deep state that want Donald Trump to fail. It's many places in Europe, including France and Germany and others. So moving and circumnavigating their radar as well is amazing. And we nailed it. Oh, I know Pete was fire with the reporters. That's fine, but our intelligence was on fire. There were, I didn't see anyone nail it like we nailed it. And listen, it's not bragging if it's true. It just comes down to we are very good at a specific few things, and one of them is military analysis. And we have time and time again over the last 4 years just crushed predictive analysis, but not linchpin analysis. And you learned a little bit about linchpin analysis. Linchpin analysis is a cancer in the intelligence community and the IC is because what happens is that you predict and base your entire supposition on if A happens, B happens, therefore C must happen. But if A or B are wrong, then C will never happen. You have to be very careful. They talk about that in this briefing. So this isn't just a giant blow fest with me just, bragging. But I will say that we crushed it. There isn't much we got wrong. In fact, we even told you what the trucks were doing. Everyone's saying they're moving off chemicals, and of course that's the easy supposition. That's the easy prediction. That's the easy linchpin. Is that of course they moved. Well, but yes, that's a wonderful thing to assume because that's what you would do if someone was going to bomb your house. But you need to understand emptying your entire house with a series of dump trucks when there's bulldozers there and they're laying 8 foot to 10 foot by 3 foot diameter concrete pipe. Everything we nailed was true. Everything. I mean, you listen to the briefing. Pete Hegseth tells you fucker. But everything in the analysis, he even tells you that they were putting reinforced concrete pipes, like I told you, in Alpha and Bravo tunnels, and they were packing it full of dirt. So everything we told you was perfectly spot on. I mean, 100%. 100%. And now, 10,000 people who tuned into those shows. Dude, what is going on? Stop playing grab ass with my lights. That is a massive win for us. Is we had the imagery. We told you how they inserted. We told you that they blew the caps off the ventilation system. They went through the ventilation system, how they would, the yield, the speed at which they were coming in, which was 1,000 foot per second. Do the math. That's a mile per second. Do the math on what speed they were coming in, and you'll figure out why there was nothing but utter devastation in this strike. So we don't feel vindicated because we knew we weren't wrong. We don't feel that, oh, well, you know what? Now we were proven right. No, we were right. We knew we were right. We wouldn't be talking about it unless we knew. And tonight, I've went the extra mile, and I'm going to break down the B-2 insertion and tell you how it was done. And I'm going to be very cognizant of not revealing any tactics, but these strike tactics, they talk about, the General Caine talks about this today. Caine talks about how they had two-man team that have been watching Fordow for 15 years, developing the GBU-57, testing it ad nauseum, identifying the weak spots, looking at the inventory racks, watching where the money's going, watching who's coming in, and analyzing. Well, this is what Leroy and I have done, and we've all been put on teams just like that. And whether it's squatting on a particular location, a geolocation, or monitoring a bank account or looking over comms traffic or looking over satellite tasking, whatever it is, we've all sat and squatted on intelligence. And one of the things that I worked on was strike specifically into Tehran. And that's what I did in Intel. Now, I don't talk a lot about what I did in Intel. Leroy does talk a little bit, and he doesn't care, and that's fine. And it's not like he's revealing anything. I just don't talk about it much when it comes to what I specifically did. But yes, imagery analysis was one of the things I did. And we know what I did with NSWAG, and that's a specialty inside the intelligence branch. But one of the things that predominantly the other C school that I had was strike. And my job was specifically to develop strike packages on hardened targets or high value targets and how to HK them. That was my job. And it was specifically, how do we go in Tehran? We need 7% attrition and losses. We need 97% probability of success. Go develop and use all the military at your disposal to develop a strike package. Now, this wasn't just my singular responsibility. This was multifaceted with hundreds of other of intelligence and IC people. And we would develop strike packages on places like Tehran. So one of my first jobs ever was to writing and developing a full amphibious air and bombardment assault on the Persian Gulf, leading up into Iran and ultimately overtaking Tehran. And that would require the 9 major cities and provinces inside Iran, their command and control and computer systems, their C4, and obviously, how do we eliminate heads of state? How do we eliminate their executive and command branch? That was the job. So when people go, well, how did you know this? Who leaked this to you? Nobody fucking leaked it to me. There's 2 things that we did. The first thing that we did is we waited, because we knew that the moment that those 6 B2s were going off, I understood it was a head fake and it was a misdirect, because I also understood what the other B2s, which they were because they were plotted to Diego Garcia, but that's not what happened, had to mask themselves to get into European airspace, to get over the Atlantic, and to get into Middle Eastern airspace unmolested and undetected. So, of course, you're going to have a level of deception that takes place in order to get them there. But then I also understood the refuelers. I understood the KC-46s. I understood the 135s. I understood the electronic countermeasures we would need, that there would be E2Cs and AWACS out there, and electronic countermeasures and EW aircraft that were there to design to cloak those aircraft. I also knew that they would be mixing in with civilian aircraft, especially during refueling, which creates confusion, because KC-146s or KC-135s and KC-46s are obviously up in the air around bases all the time. So to see a military aircraft like a KC-135 Air Force or a 46, which is doing a refueling run, but not see the host target, is normal, because military aircraft don't ping up on civilian radar, and they only ping up on military radar, IFF, and other types of tracking. So you had to ghost these things. You had to run parallels. You had to go ahead and come in at different altitudes. There's a lot of things that they had to do. They also had to go ahead and backtrack and stay in circular patterns while all 6 of those B2s were refueled, not simultaneously, but independently of each other. And my prediction is it gets awfully dangerous to bring multiple KCs and 46s at different altitudes, so you probably would only have 1 or 2 of those refueling at a time, and that can take up to an hour. It's a long process to go ahead and hook up and feed those B2s, especially when you're trying to go ahead and cover it and keep it clandestine. So we're going to watch this video. It's gonna blow you away. It is first of all, it's very Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell-esque. It's got that feeling. And when Dick Cheney wasn't a douche and he ran SECDEF, it has that feeling. It is an intimate briefing. It is one that is full of detail. You are going to hear, you're not going to be surprised. None of you are going to be surprised. You're going to hear it and be like, oh, we heard this on the Don't Unfriend Me show. Yeah, you did. And there's one point where Pete Hegseth calls out Jennifer, it's not Lawrence, but maybe it is. I don't remember her. She's been a White House correspondent, and she is very well respected in the intel community, but they're obviously pissed off with her. And I think maybe that could possibly be where the leak came from. I'm not for sure. I don't want to make any accusations, but Pete Hegseth was absolutely vile to her. Vile. Chuck Stealth. Yeah, we don't do links in chat, dude. If you want to tell us what you're linking, that's fine, but we don't want to expose our members to any crap. So if you mind telling us what that link is before people click on it, I'm okay. But if it's not directly related to this channel, then just please stop linking. Thanks, bud. Curious as to how many times did a B-2 bomber refuel on this mission? I'm not going to go into specifics, but I will tell you that I'm very, very certain it was more than +5. And I can't go into the specific number, but based upon the time factor, I've broken it down. I've got the timeline. I've got airspeed. Jennifer Griffin, right? Yeah. I've got the airspeed. I've got the capabilities of the B-2. I've got the overall miles. I think I understand the patterns that they took, and I can kind of walk you through. I'm not going to go into specifics and give you geo coordinates, because we may need to hit these things again, and I'm not going to be responsible for showing you that type of stuff. But I can tell you that it was not a straight line in any way, shape, or form, any way imaginable. They had to, during refueling, mingle with civilian traffic. That will help you understand what took place. Because once again, KC is in the middle of the Atlantic for no reason. Unless they were on the path to Guam, they may get away with that 1/4 of the way to Tehran. But there is a clear indicator that they basically turn northeast and were stop heading southeast towards, it would be southeast east, southeast east. So there was a clear indication that they would be no longer there. But the thing is the moment that they went dark, that's standard operating procedure once they get out of U.S. airspace. Once they go into international airspace, they're going to go dark. So, but those radar systems were looking for them. And if you see a KC-135 off the top of Nova Scotia, or, coming into Wales, or coming into Germany or Ramstein, or moving down into to the Cape and near CENTCOM, you're going to go, why? This and any type of system, as far as radar acquisition, is going to spit out a probability factor that this plane is an abnormality compared to normal flight patterns. And those things happen all the time. Yeah, I don't have Olivia helping me. So if you're going to donate and you're going to do that, that's fine. I will try to check it. I remember, guys, it doesn't matter whether it's day or night. We still have to broadcast at the same level. So we have fees for this too. So every time we broadcast, it costs money. So if you guys have the ability to help us out with donations, we'd greatly appreciate it. But let's get to this briefing, because I think that's probably one of the most important things this morning, and we'll watch it together. I'm going to add commentary because there's a lot of things that need to be said. But this is a fantastic briefing. If you have not seen it, I strongly urge you to watch it in its entirety. It's that good. Let's go.
Flo Rida is going to be coming up. He's going to do a live performance, but he's also performing no longer operational because they are fairly precise machines. There are rotors and the technical characteristics of the rotors and vibrators from the bombs have been completely destroyed.
All right, here they are.
Secretary of Defense, as well as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs.
Well, good morning, everybody. Just arrived last night back from NATO.
Jaze, you should care how they did it. Now, we shouldn't care about the intricacies to a level of exposing things that we don't want to expose, but you should care, because this is a masterful strike. And that is the only way to say it. I believe, to me, this was more complex than the Doolittle raid. Logistically, getting a 25 off of a carrier, yeah, that's logistically, and that's crazy. But that is one facet of the difficulty. Then, obviously, being a suicide mission and having to dump and hope that you can get into China and surrender and get back to the United States and not killed in Japan. Those are all probabilities that were insane. And I'm not taking away from the Doolittle raid, but when I say the complexities of how to remain undiscovered, the time and planning that this took, the details of the efficiency, the probability, the improbabilities, being the only nation on the planet who could do this. By far, there is no one even remotely close. Nobody could even scratch the surface of predominantly, like, if you had a nation pop those vents and even had the technology to guide a bomb down there, they don't have anything that can remotely do the damage that we do. This is not a David and Goliath situation. This is an ant versus Goliath situation. There is no sling. There is no rock. There is no chance. So this is, in my opinion, will go down as probably one of the most complex clandestine strikes ever to be pulled off with probability of 100% success. Because I have told you, based upon the analysis that I've seen, and that's my job. He even says it. He said, this is the IC's community's job to do BDA. Well, this is something that Leroy and I know how to do, and we firmly believe that these targets were HK'd.
2 days apart from my battle buddy, so it's good to see him this morning. Good to see you, Mr. Chairman. You too, sir. Where there was a historic outcome. I want to start with that real quick. I think there's so much news, so many things happening that oftentimes big, momentous moments get missed. What President Trump accomplished in NATO yesterday was game-changing and historic. A shift in burden sharing to European responsibility in NATO that most would have said was impossible at the beginning of his term. But he said NATO needs to pay up. They started in the first term, and here in his second term, we've accelerated that. 32 NATO countries committed to spending 5% of their GDP on defense, on actually investing in the NATO alliance. So I hope with all the ink spilled, all of your outlets find the time to properly recognize this historic change in continental security that other presidents tried to do, other presidents talked about. President Trump accomplished it. It's a huge deal. You see, we're here this morning because in hunting for scandals all the time, in trying to find wedges and spin stories, this press corps and the press...
Otto, good to see you in here, buddy. You should watch the recorded show yesterday. I think you'll be mucho impressed. The religious aspect and I are getting closer and closer, and I still have your Bible that you gave me, which I guess it's my Bible now, and still often refer to it. So appreciate you very, very much. But I think you'll appreciate the show yesterday. If you go take a look at it, and it should be at the top of the page or slightly at the bottom. But it's about a 4-minute video, and it talks about God, and I think you'll appreciate it. But yeah.
Or miss historic moments. You miss historic moments like 5% at NATO, which when you hear, I was in the closed door briefing. I wish there could have been cameras in there. When you heard the prime ministers and presidents of other countries, to a man and to a woman, looking at President Trump and saying, this never could have happened. Never would have happened. It seemed impossible 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 8 years ago. But here we are because of your leadership. If you ask them the question, I bet they'd say the same thing. But searching for scandals, you miss historic moments like recruiting at the Pentagon. Historic levels in the Army, the Air Force, and the Navy. Yeah, maybe there'll be a little mention here or there, but because it was under President Trump's leadership, because Americans are responding to him as commander-in-chief, the press corps doesn't want to write about him. Or bring us to the topic of the moment, the highly successful strikes in Iran. Let me read the bottom line here. President Trump directed the most complex and secretive military operation in history, and it was a resounding success, resulting in a ceasefire agreement and the end of the 12-day war. There's been a lot of discussion about what happened and what didn't happen. Step back for a second. Because of decisive military action, President Trump created the conditions to end the war, decimating, choose your word, obliterating, destroying Iran's nuclear capabilities. I want to read some of the assessments that have been provided, because whether it's fake news, CNN, MSNBC, or the New York Times, there's been fawning coverage of a preliminary assessment. I've had a chance to read it. Every outlet has breathlessly reported on a preliminary assessment from DIA. I'm looking at it right now. Again, it was preliminary, a day and a half after the actual strike, when it admits itself in writing that it requires weeks to accumulate the necessary data to make such an assessment. It's preliminary. It points out that it's not been coordinated with the intelligence community at all. There's low confidence in this particular report. It says in the report there are gaps in the information. It says in the report multiple linchpin assumptions are what this assessment, a linchpin assumption, you know what that is? That means your entire premise is predicated on a linchpin. If you're wrong, everything else is wrong. And yet, and still, this report acknowledges it's likely severe damage. Again, this is preliminary, but leaked because someone had an agenda to try to muddy the waters and make it look like this historic strike wasn't successful. I'm going to get to the chairman in a moment because he's going to lay out the particulars for you based on his professional military experience. But here's what other folks are saying. The DIA that put that report out says that this is a preliminary low confidence report and will continue to be refined as additional intelligence becomes available. How about the Israeli Atomic Energy Commission? The devastating U.S. strikes on Fordow destroyed the site's critical infrastructure and rendered the enrichment facility inoperable. Have any of these quotes made their way into the New York Times or the Washington Post, MSNBC, CNN? Any of these quotes? How about this one? This is a new one from the UN, the United Nations. No friend of the United States, or certainly Israel often. Here's the head of the UN Atomic Energy Agency this morning, Rafael Grossi. U.S. and Israeli strikes caused enormous damage to Iran's nuclear sites. Don't take my word for it. How about the IDF's chief of staff? I can say here that the assessment is that we significantly damaged the nuclear program, setting it back by years. I repeat, years. The Iranian foreign minister, the spokesman, our nuclear installations have been badly damaged, that's for sure. I'm sure that's an understatement. John Ratcliffe, the director of the CIA, putting out a statement just last night. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates Iran's nuclear program has been severely damaged by recent targeted strikes. This includes new intelligence from a historically reliable, very different than preliminary assessment with low confidence. He's saying historically reliable and accurate source and method that several key Iranian nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be rebuilt over the course of years. CIA continues to collect additional reliably sourced information to keep appropriate decision makers fully informed. How about DNI Tulsi Gabbard yesterday? She writes, and I quote, "New intelligence confirms what POTUS has stated numerous times. Iran's nuclear facilities have been destroyed." Institute for Science and International Security President David Albright, overall, Israel and U.S. attacks have effectively destroyed Iran's centrifuge enrichment program. Time and time again, I can go down the list. Those that understand, those that see, those that do proper assessments recognize that what the United States military did was historic.
Well,
And again, before I pass it to the chairman, because you, and I mean specifically you, the press, specifically you, the press corps, because you cheer against Trump so hard, it's like in your DNA and in your blood to cheer against Trump, because you want him not to be successful so bad, you have to cheer against the efficacy of these strikes. You have to hope maybe they weren't effective. Maybe the way the Trump administration has represented them isn't true. So let's take half-truths, spun information, leaked information, and then spin it in every way we can to try to cause doubt and manipulate the public mind over whether or not our brave pilots were successful. How many stories have been written about how hard it is to, I don't know, fly a plane for 36 hours?
Yep.
Has MSNBC done that story?
We did.
Has Fox? Have we done the story how hard that is? Have we done it 2 or 3 times so that American people understand? How about how difficult it is to shoot a drone from an F-15 or 16 or F-22 or F-35? Or what it's like to man a Patriot battery? Or how hard it is to refuel midair? Giving the American people an understanding of how complex and sophisticated this mission really was. There are so many aspects of what our brave men and women did that because of the hatred of this press corps, are undermined because people are trying to leak and spin that it wasn't successful. It's irresponsible. And folks in this room are privy to that information because of the proximity here in the Pentagon. It's an important responsibility. And time again, classified information is leaked or peddled for political purposes to try to make the president look bad. And what's really happening is you're undermining the success of incredible
that's why you don't
B-2
watch the media.
and incredible F-35 pilots and incredible refuelers.
If anyone was like, you know what, I still trust the media, I believe the media, we told you not to trust them. Now, you already knew that, but for some reason, we still listen to them. So I'm telling you again, and I'm telling you with everything in my heart and soul, never listen to the legacy media again. They are wrong. I can't tell you how many stories we've gotten right from Israel, from the Baltimore bridge collapse, from the Nashville bombing of the Pac Bell Center, from every election that we've covered, and that is primaries, midterms, and general elections. I get the accuracy that we gave you during last election was only preceded by what we did in 2020. From everything we do, that's got to be my son. Hold on. Ethan, is that you? Okay, close the door, please. Lock up. So, welcome home. So, it doesn't matter. Whatever we cover, Russia-Ukraine war, from breaking down all the comments we were about the election and the stolen election, the J6, it doesn't matter. Our accuracy is impeccable. And the reason why is that we are selective to staying in our lane of what we are experts at. And the problem is that like politicians that used to be plantation and share lawyers, who used to be engineers, who used to be assemblymen or constables, would go and represent their expertise and then get the F out. We have a series of people on the news and media who are pretending to be experts in everything and openly admitting and saying the words, I'm not an expert in this subject, that's why you're here, and then continue to berate them and not listen to them. This is the difference between this channel and other channels, is that we do not say shit for clicks. Yes, we rely on your donations, and we will talk about that, and that's what we do. We don't sell you special beef that's going to carry you through the next world war. We don't sell you blue little drops that will turn your urine blue and you think it's helping you, when honestly reading a book or some exercise or changing your eating habits will do the better for you than that. We don't sell you any gold or silver and tell you that somehow those things are more important and more beneficial to your security than having a go bag and having antibiotics and having a small stash of gold or jewelry is probably going to benefit you more in the long run than when you will need to dump your entire savings out on a loaf of bread. We don't sit here and sell you doomsday goods. What we try to do is say, help us make rent so we can continue to broadcast and give you guys what you need until people wake up in this country and realize and seek secondary sources like our channel and make it even more popular than it already is. That's what we need. That's why we ask for money, not for any other reason. thedumbshow.com/donate.
Incredible air defenders who accomplished their mission, set back a nuclear program in ways that other presidents would have dreamed. How about we celebrate that? How about we talk about how special America is, that only we have these capabilities? I think it's too much to ask, unfortunately, for the fake news.
Sandy, it's good to have you here.
We're used to that. But we also have an opportunity to stand at the podium and read the truth of what's really happening. And the reality is, you want to call it destroyed, you want to call it defeated, you want to call it obliterated, choose your word. This was an historically successful attack. We should celebrate it as Americans, and it gives us a chance to have peace, chance to have a deal, and an opportunity to prevent a nuclear Iran, which is something President Trump talked about for 20 years, and no other presidents had the courage to actually do. So with that, I want to hand it over to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. They've done technical analysis on this, not just on the strike, but also on our Patriot defenders on Al-Udeid. And Mr. Chairman, I'll hand it over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, and good morning.
This next story is incredible. Ethan, if you want to listen into this, it's pretty incredible. I just want to say, you're fine. What are you doing? Hi. Now what? Okay, well, if you want to come in and headphone up, you can. You don't have to. Yeah. Put a hat on. Go put a hat on. Or go listen, do you need to get some breakfast or shower or... Okay, if you want to, you don't have to come on. If you want to come on, this is a good listen. I mean, this is breaking down the raid. You've already heard it from me, but they're confirming everything we talked about. So you decide. Don't feel like you have to come on. If you want to come on, great. If you don't, go play. Okay, say hi. Go over there to a mic and say hi. I'll turn on mic 2.
Hello, everybody.
Hold on. Let me get it on. There you go. Now go ahead and right there you go. Say hi.
Cool cup.
I know. Go say hi real quick.
Hello.
Okay, goodbye.
Bye.
That was great. That was wonderful. See ya. Your hair, dude. You've got to get a haircut. Go take a shower. Your hair is going to fall out if you can't do chlorine without a shower. All right, love you. Bye. Go take a shower in our shower, dude. That'll wake your ass up. I know that shower head is the shit, isn't it? All right.
All of you, thank you for being here. As a follow-up to my comments on Sunday's press conference, I wanted to give you a few updates this morning on something I'm honored to do as a chairman, and that's a chance to get to talk about some of our service members and the incredible things that they do on behalf of our nation. And I apologize ahead of time for the length and the detail. Today, I'm going to brief you on a couple things. First, I'm going to talk about our air defenders at Al-Udeid in Qatar and their actions on Monday. Then I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the academics that went into the attack against Fordo.
Quickly, this guy, General Dan Caine, Raisin Caine is his name. He's Joint Chiefs, pilot, United States Air Force, decorated general. He is a 4-star general. This guy is incredible. I mean, his storytelling capability, this will go uninterrupted, but it is moving and it is fantastic.
The massive ordnance penetrator weapon, and we're going to show a video that highlights the effects that weapon has. Of course, nobody was down inside the target, so we don't have video from the target. First, on Monday, as the president has stated, on Monday morning, we began to receive
I turned up the volume. If you can't hear something on Twitter, you need to leave Twitter and go back in. This is standard for live shows. I don't know what to tell you. You just got to leave and come back in because it's broadcasting 5x5 on all channels.
Warnings that Iran intended to attack U.S. bases in the region. That morning, building on the work that CENTCOM Commander Eric Kurilla had done, and on the orders of the president, at Al-Udeid Air Base in Qatar and around the region, we assumed a minimum force posture. Most folks had moved off the base to extend the security perimeter out away from what we assessed might be a target zone, except for a very few Army soldiers at Al-Udeid. At that point, only 2 Patriot batteries remained on base, roughly 44 American soldiers responsible for defending the entire base, to include CENTCOM's forward headquarters in the Middle East, an entire air base, and all the U.S. forces there. The oldest soldier was a 28-year-old captain. The youngest was a 21-year-old private who'd been in the military for less than 2 years. So let's put ourselves out there for a second. Imagine you're that young first lieutenant, you're 25 or 26 years old, and you've been assigned as the tactical director inside the command and control element. You, at that age, are the sole person responsible to defend this base. Listening next to you is your early warning operator whose job is to notify you of imminent attack. There's 5 people inside a vehicle and 5 people outside of a vehicle around these, a total of, as I said, 44. By the way, You've sat in the Middle East for years, deployed over and over again, extended multiple times, always being prepared, but unsure of when that particular day will come that you must execute your mission and not fail at doing it. In this case, these Patriot crews were deployed from Korea and Japan as part of our U.S. forces there to ensure that we had the most capable missiles in the CENTCOM area of responsibility. As the day continues, you start to hear more and more chatter in the information space about a pending attack. And as the sun starts to set in the west, you get orders from your higher headquarters to make sure that your missile batteries are pointed to the north. There are just a few other teammates. It's hot. You're getting nervous, and you expect an attack. Outside of those Patriot vehicles, your hot crew, which is 1 NCO and 4 additional soldiers, turns a key and relinquishes control of those missiles to that young lieutenant inside the vehicle, and you wait. You know that you're going to have approximately 2 minutes, 120 seconds to either succeed or fail. And then at approximately 12:30 p.m. on Monday, that's 7:30 p.m. in Qatar, as the sun sets in the west, Iran attacks. As the targets were detected, round after round of Patriot missiles are ejected from their canisters by an initial launch charge. Then the main solid rocket motor ignites. You can feel this in your body if you've ever been around a Patriot taking a shot. And round after round goes out and guides against those missiles coming inbound. We believe that this is the largest single Patriot engagement in U.S. military history. And we were joined in this engagement.
Yeah, Ashley, it is something special to get the human side of this. It was what Schwarzkopf and Colin Powell were so very good at. He does an excellent job telling the stories of the airmen and the soldiers, Marines, and sailors. He does a wonderful job. And there's no inter-service rivalry here. He is just all about the accolades for the armed forces. So I agree with you. I think it's an amazing assessment, and I wish we could give those stories. We like to try to do that on Fridays and talk about Gold Star families. And if we have any anecdotal stories of friends or people who are still in the service who share that with Leroy and I, we try to share those things. But you don't get that here. We do a very cold analysis that gives you the facts. And although it's nice to be right, this brings the human side to what our men and women of the armed forces do. It's very special. So that's why I'm on this morning, is to bring that to you. And I think it's an amazing, amazing testament to this administration versus last. And
by the Qatari Patriot crews. I'm not going to tell you how many rounds were shot, but it was a bunch because of classified purposes. And we're aware that there's reports of something getting through. What we do know is there was a lot of metal flying around between attacking missiles being hit by Patriots, boosters from attacking missiles being hit by Patriots, the Patriots themselves flying around, and the debris from those Patriots hitting the ground. There was a lot of metal flying around. And yet our U.S. air defenders had only seconds to make complex decisions with strategic impact. These awesome humans, along with their Qatari brothers and sisters in arms, stood between a salvo of Iranian missiles and the safety of Al Udeid. They are the unsung heroes of the 21st century United States Army. And I know a lot of you have seen the videos online and the excitement as those Patriots departed their launchers and went up and guided. This really demonstrates the combat capability and capacity of our Army air defenders. Simply stated, they absolutely crushed it.
Yeah, Kim, this is from an hour and a half ago. This wasn't on yesterday, but this is this morning live. Yes, ma'am.
If you'd flip this over, thanks. Let me next move to a walkthrough of.
Okay, now this is where we come in. By the way, if you have not liked and shared and gotten this out, got this out, get this out, I don't care. 165 are currently watching, and we're moving on up. Twitter is starting to fire off, and so is Facebook. Please share this. Please get this out there. Without you, we can't do this. So this is where we get into the intricacies that we've covered over the last 2 nights and told you everything you're about to hear. You heard from the Dumb Show first. There's nothing that should be a surprise to you if you've watched our show in regards to this briefing you're about to receive, because you have 2 people who were trained by the exact same government that's briefing you now.
GBU 57, massive ordnance penetrator weapon, and share a little bit about the planners who did this and their work on the weapon. First, let me set the stage for you. There's an organization in the U.S. called the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, DTRA. DTRA does a lot of things for our nation, but DTRA is the world's leading expert on deeply buried underground targets. In 2009, a Defense Threat Reduction Agency officer was brought into a vault at an undisclosed location and briefed on something going on in Iran. For security purposes, I'm not going to share his name. He was shown some photos and some highly classified intelligence of what looked like a major construction project in the mountains of Iran. He was tasked to study this facility, work with the intelligence community to understand it, and he was soon joined by an additional teammate. For more than 15 years, this officer and his teammate lived and breathed this single target, Fordo, a critical element of Iran's covert nuclear weapons program. He studied the geology. He watched the Iranians dig it out. He watched the construction, the weather, the discard material, the geology, the construction materials, where the materials came from. He looked at the vent shaft, the exhaust shaft, the electrical systems, the environmental control systems, every nook, every crater, every piece of equipment going in and every piece of equipment going out. They literally dreamed about this target at night when they slept. They thought about it driving back and forth to work, and they knew from the very first days what this was for. You do not build a multi-layered underground bunker complex with centrifuges and other equipment in a mountain for any peaceful purpose. They weren't able to discuss this with their family, their wives, their kids, their friends, but they just kept grinding it out. And along the way, they realized we did not have a weapon that could adequately strike and kill this target. So they began a journey to work with industry and other tacticians to develop the GBU 57. They tested it over and over again, tried different options, tried more after that. They accomplished hundreds of test shots and dropped many full-scale weapons against extremely realistic targets for a single purpose: kill this target at the time and place of our nation's choosing. And then, on a day in June of 2025, more than 15 years after they started their life's work, the phone rang and the President of the United States ordered the B-2 force that you've supported to go strike and kill this target. Yesterday, I had the incredible honor and privilege of spending time with these 2 Defense Threat Reduction Agency officers who've given so much. One of them said, quote, "I can't even get my head around this. My heart is so filled."
Sean Shallow, there's a name I haven't seen in a while. Sean, thanks for liking the show, man. I hope you're doing well in Arizona. If you're still in Arizona, hope your wife is doing well. Hope everyone's doing well over in the Shallow family.
With the pride of being a part of this team, I am so honored to be a part of this. To you both, thank you, and thank you to your families. Operation Midnight Hammer was the culmination of those 15 years of incredible work. The air crews, the tanker crews, the weapons crews that built the weapons, the load crews that loaded it. Before I run through this video today, I want to talk a little bit about weaponeering and what goes into an attack. Weaponeering is the science of evaluating a target. I mentioned all of those factors before that these 2 DTRA officers had thought about. Ultimately, weaponeering is determining the right weapon and fuse combination to achieve the desired effects and max.
Got a quick question from Amy. Says, do you think sleeper cells are going to cause issues domestically? No. I think there are groups that will claim credit for that, but no. Listen, the one thing about jihadists is that they don't take a vacation from committing jihad. And they don't need a reason to hate America. They already hate America. So this doesn't necessarily, nobody likes Iran. It's very much like Gazans. Iran has been a bully in the Middle East for a very long time. They have went to war with Iraq. They have went to war with Saudi Arabia. They have been at war with Israel. They've had conflicts with Hezbollah and Beirut. They simply run these proxies because they fund these proxies. The moment the money dries up, the loyalty dies. Iran does not want the United States up its ass with a magnifying glass. And trust me when I say this, they have absolutely zero defense systems. None. Their IADs have been completely obliterated. Their Navy is a fucking joke. They don't have an Air Force. They have no tactical bombers. They have no suppression. Electronic countermeasures are nil. They have no intelligence apparatus. Their command and control communications and computers has been neutered. I think Iran can't control sleeper cells. They don't have the infrastructure. They don't have the networking. This is not Al-Qaeda. There is not billions upon billions of dollars being endlessly funneled from Saudi Arabia and other countries into these groups in a clandestine fashion. Someone may act alone, and should you be worried, you have a better chance of getting have a hammer while flying at 40,000 feet, enter your turbine and downing your plane than you do being involved in some sort of domestic terrorist attack. There is no nuclear weapon. They do not have a dirty nuke. They would have to resort to chemicals here in the United States or smuggling something over the border. That is highly, highly improbable. Eastern and Western seaboards and shipping is constantly a huge concern. But to assume that everything coming out of the port of Iran or other neighboring countries that support terrorism, that we're not tracking those containers before we're tracking something coming from East Africa or Taiwan is juvenile in our thought process. Do I believe that there will be a sleeper cell attack? Probably not. Do I believe there could be? Yes. Do I believe you should be worried? No. Because how often are you worried about an active shooter? Probability will tell you that you have like a 0.000007% chance of being involved in an active shooting in the United States. But the media makes it sound like it happens every second. So Iran is stupid right now. They're stupid, and they are trying to save face. The last thing that they want to do is go ahead and draw the wrath of the U.S.
Destruction against a target. In the case of Fordo, the Ditcher team understood with a high degree of confidence the elements of the target required to kill its functions, and the weapons were designed, planned, and delivered to ensure that they achieve the effects in the mission space. By the way, in the beginning of its development, we had so many PhDs working on the MOP program, doing modeling and simulation, that we were quietly and in a secret way the biggest users of supercomputer hours within the United States of America. So let me talk about the graphic a little bit. And the GBU-57, which all of you I know is a 30,000-pound weapon dropped only by the B-2. It's comprised of steel, explosive, and a fuse, programmed bespokely each weapon to achieve a particular effect inside the target. Each weapon had a unique desired impact angle, arrival, final heading, and a fuse setting. The fuse is effectively what tells the bomb when to function. A longer delay in a fuse, the deeper the weapon will penetrate.
Matty Howenitz says, it all adds up, sir. Thanks for putting in the time this morning. Matt Howenitz donated $21.10. Thanks for getting us started, Matt. I was a little worried. I was like, oh boy, it's going to be a long morning. Thank you for starting us off right. We appreciate it.
And drive into the target. So on Fordo, in June of 2008, you can see these three holes. Depicted here is the main exhaust shaft with two additional ventilation shafts on either side. The United States decided to strike these two ventilation shafts, as seen here on the main graphic, as the primary point of entry into the mission space. In the days preceding the attack against Fordo, the Iranians attempted to cover the shafts with concrete to try to prevent an attack.
What was that? What was that? Oh, wow. Someone would have told you that. There's more. Pete Hegseth goes into the tunnel entrances that they went ahead and tried to put those concrete tubes, stack them vertically and pack them full of sand in order to go ahead and create a air barrier to the flight of not the JDAMs, but the bunker busters. And understand this is that when a missile goes into pockets of air, then hits a solid, then a pockets in air, it has to, it does and can be considered like a speed bump. Consider it like a pocket of turbulence for a plane, which slows down the plane. And powering through those is the best way to get through them, or adverting and moving it from a different direction. So the Iranians thought that by creating pockets and having the missile hit an air pocket, hit a solid, hit an air pocket, hit a solid, and then continuing to go through concrete and then sand would somehow throw these off course or detonate them. They were wrong. You're not going to stop something that's 30,000 pounds moving at 1,000 feet a second. You're just not. It's going to stop when it wants to, and that's physics. But remember, we told you that on the Dumb Show. We were the only ones who told you there's no other channel that told you exactly what we said. We had the trucks, we had the imagery, we showed you what type of trucks they were, we showed you the bulldozers, we showed you the column of dirt 1 kilometer away, we showed you the trenching of the bulldozers that were pushing this dirt up to the side so these trucks could shovel dirt in. It was at 6 feet high, the same level of the bed of these trucks. All of these things lined up that these trucks were dumping dirt by 3 semi-trailers full of 8 to 10 foot by 3 foot in circumference concrete barriers. All of these things we showed you. Nobody else did. And they confirm it here in a second.
I won't share the specific dimensions of the concrete cap, but you should know that we know what the dimensions of those concrete caps were.
Yep.
The planners had to account for this. They accounted for everything. The cap was forcibly removed by the first weapon, and the main shaft was uncovered. Weapons.
To let you know, to remove the caps were not GBUs. To remove the caps were Tomahawk missiles. So the Tomahawks are more than effective at doing that, removing those caps. And based upon, we know the size too. Leroy and I told you the size of these caps. These caps are massive. So the Tomahawk missile is precisely designed to do this above ground targets and striking targets. So Tomahawks were used to remove the caps of the ventilation shafts, and then it was full joy. 2 GBU 57 ABs down each tube, a total of 6. Something to think about.
2, 3, 4, 5 were tasked to enter the main shaft, move down into the complex at greater than 1,000 feet per second, and explode in the mission space. Weapon number 6 was designed on each side, so there were 6 on each side. Weapons number 6 was designed as a flex weapon to allow us to cover if one of the preceding jets or one of the preceding weapons did not work. The video I'm about to show you is a culmination of over 15 years of development and testing. As I said, hundreds of test shots on various models. This is one weapon. So if you take a view of this as 5 additionals, you'll get a sense.
Tamar donated $10. Thank you, Tamar. We appreciate it. Absolutely awesome of you, moving us to $31.10. Folks, remember what I told you. It wasn't necessarily one bomb. It was the redundancies that would cause the problems. And this is why I told you that the probability of utter destruction of these terminals was 100%. The only question that I had and Leroy had that we presented to you were, did the weapon systems detonate effectively? If they did, then inertia and physics and delivery were guaranteed. Then you had 3 things to consider. You had the explosion, the initial explosion of the bomb, you had the shrapnel of a bomb, and then you have the pressure wave of a bomb, which determines its success and probability of destruction. The fourth thing that the general doesn't talk about is actually sympathetic explosions, which most assuredly there were sympathetic explosions in these blasts, which would be additional fuel sources or some sort of chemical that would ignite or explode upon rupture inside the space, which would happen if they're, and the most assuredly they're using to generate the auxiliary and primary power of this location using a fuel source that is combustible. So the fourth would be secondary explosions and fires. There hasn't been any evidence of that, but when you're in a collapsed space, the oxygen inside of that more than likely would be burned up. And since the ventilation shafts came down, secondary or residual or sympathetic fires or explosions are not probable at this time. So the three main that he considered: shrapnel, original explosive, and pressure wave. And what we told you was in that confined space that the pressure wave would be the biggest consideration, along with the initial explosion, which would channel and chamber down the path of least resistance, which were all those tunnels. Those 2 to 3 levels are all singular columns of tunnel systems that have no bomb reduction capabilities. There are no reinforced doors. There are no sealed chambers. It would literally go through there like a hot knife through butter and incinerate the air from the primary explosion. And then the pressure wave would carry through like acoustics and kill anything in there that didn't have a resistance rating for a certain amount of Gs, reinforced, whatever it would be. This is where the probability of 0 is that any of these situations remain intact, or any of these facilities. We explained that to you, and he's about to explain the exact same thing. Here it is.
Of what this looks like. Hopefully you can see it and there's not too much reflection. Tom runs our videos out there. We'll run it at full speed so you can see it and then go back through it. Go ahead, Tom.
Here's exactly what I was talking about: the pressure wave and the overall explosive index of this. If we watch that again,
this is if I see it and then go back through it. Go ahead, Tom.
So what you're seeing is the bunker buster go in and watch what happens in this narrow entryway, this tunnel, and look at the explosive force and the pressure wave from the initial explosion and the pressure wave pushing out this fireball of death. Yeah. Now imagine that pressure wave not having anywhere to go. That's equivalent to 7,000 pounds of TNT. 7,000 pounds of TNT in a confined pocket of air, which is channeled. It's like putting gasoline in the bottom of a cup and putting a metal straw on the top, agitating that gasoline, igniting it. You will have a turbine from that straw. That is what happened through every one of these tunnels. Superheated air, 12 to 1,500 degrees Fahrenheit, oxygen burned, lungs burned, hair burned, anything that was standing that has any type of fuse or any type of wiring is gone. Anything that has any type of rubber or galvanized rubber or plastic or carbon is melted. Foundations, glass is broken and cracked and incinerated. Any copper or brass or aluminum is melted. Folks, nothing survived.
Keep it going for a minute. You'll see inside the mission space.
See those pockets? This is exactly what it's tested against.
Unlike a normal surface bomb, you won't see an impact crater because they're designed to deeply bury and then function. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. All 6 weapons at each vent at Fordo went exactly where they were intended to go. A bomb has 3 effects that causes damage: blast, fragmentation, and overpressure. In this case, the primary kill mechanism in the mission space was a mix of overpressure and blast, ripping through the open tunnels and destroying critical hardware. The majority of
Everything, either the general watched our show and said, hey, that sounds good, let's say that, or this is true. So when you have multiple independent sources lining up and multiple experts telling you the same thing, the probability is that it's accurate. I've got no reason to lie to you. Why would I? What's the point? So something to think about.
Damage we assessed based on our extensive modeling was a blast layer combined with the impulse extending from the shock. Imagine what this looks like 6 times over.
That's right.
A point that I want to make here. The joint force does not do BDA.
I want to just address something really quick. It's not just 6 bombs were overlaid. It's that the integrity of one bomb going off, your integrity doesn't increase. The structural integrity doesn't get better. So you need to understand that any resistance points from the first bomb were negated by the second bomb, negated by the third bomb, negated by the fourth bomb, fifth bomb, and sixth bomb as an ancillary benefit of if it didn't kill everything, which they knew the first 2 would, you had a 6 redundancy on top of the 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 redundancy. Do you understand? Do you get it now?
By design, we don't grade our own homework. The intelligence community does. But here's what we know following the attacks and the strikes on Fordo. First, that the weapons were built, tested, and loaded properly.
Hey, Robbie.
2, the weapons were released
Morning, Tommy.
on speed and on parameters. 3, the weapons all guided to their intended targets and to their intended aim points. 4, the weapons functioned as designed, meaning they exploded.
That's
we
the
know
question.
this through other means, intelligence means that we have that were visibly, we were visibly able to see them.
We told you what those were. So imagery analysis is one. We also understand that there are several Richter scale and monitoring in that area because earthquakes in Iran are abundant. Like there's something 7,000 to 9,000 a year. So there's another way. We also have other ways of collecting evidence that I can't go into, but there's multiple ways for as far as seismic and visual. You can also, just one is that you can actually check the particles in the air in the surrounding area and see some of the explosive properties that we use atomized in the air. And by taking a sample of that air, you can get an understanding if it released its payload. There are so many different facets to identify if an ordnance went off. And I can't, the only thing I can tell you is go watch Clear and Present Danger, the 3rd installment of Tom Clancy with Harrison Ford, where Clear and Present Danger, they go into Colombia and they hit a narco house and all the warlords are there and they park a cellulose guided bomb, which is basically a JDAM or a GBU, just like this, a laser guided bomb into this structure and obliterating everything. This and look at the analysis. So you have the Cuban or the Colombian government and the U.S. government simultaneously, and the intelligence apparatuses trying to uncover who was using the bomb. And of course, Jack Ryan's analyzing it, and then the shadowy figure from Colombia intelligence is a Latin Jack Ryan. They're breaking it down and they're looking at the paper residue from the cellulose bomb, because that's what cellulose is essentially paper, which leaves no footprint, no shrapnel or anything else. So the lack of evidence and forensic evidence of the ordnance going off is a clear indicator of what the weapon system was, if that makes sense. Go watch that. It is a fantastic breakdown in forensic technology and forensic study to identify the capabilities of the U.S. government. From imagery analysis, like Leroy and I did, these are the things that got me into intel. Now, people ask all the time, how do you know? How do you know this? Because this is, guys, Jimi Hendrix plays the guitar, and he does it very, very well. Picasso was a painter. Da Vinci was a creator and a philosopher. I am good at this. This is what Leroy is good at this. This is how Leroy and I found each other. And there will be other people we find. But if you just try to understand is that there are people who are masters of their craft. This is my craft. I've been doing this since I've been 6 years old. I have studied weapon systems, studied planes and tanks. I am lord in military history. I understand how to assess. I understand how to logically deduct what the probability of what took place based upon the intended result and the actual result. This isn't hard for me. So when people ask, well, how do you know this? Because this is like reading music. This is like reading music. That's the best way to understand it. If you try to read music and you don't have any idea how to do it, it is the most foreign and completely incomprehensible thing in the world. And then you have people who master reading music, and then you have people who do it by ear. The way that I process things, the way that Leroy processes things is that we understand how to read music. We understand how to play it by ear. But more importantly, we remember what it was like when we didn't know how to read it and get back to that simplicity of understanding. That the most simplistic answer is usually the correct one. That Occam's razor usually proves accurate. That is the difference between me and some general in a building who's been there and has been inundated with all the music and all the study, but not the practical application of what they know. This is what Leroy and I try to do. Yes, we're bragging a little bit because we want to, because we were right, and we love that shit.
And we know that the trailing jets saw the first weapons function, and the pilots stated, quote, "This was the brightest explosion that I've ever seen. It literally looked like daylight." Let me now turn to the bomber crews themselves, give you a few details about
Listen to
them.
this, because this is accurate
crews
too.
that attacked Fordo were from the active duty Air Force and the Missouri Air National Guard. The crews...
You know what, folks? I hate to do this to you, but I got to play a commercial. We've got the peak of the amount of people we want on. We've got 174 on Twitter. We've got plenty on Facebook. Unfortunately, we've only raised $31.10, and we have to continue to have donations to the show. So we'll play this. This is just a pee break for everybody, then come back. It's actually a very funny video if you haven't had a chance to watch it. It's fun. Gives you 2 minutes to go pee or listen to why you need to help the Dumb Show be successful. And you can do that by going to thedumbshow.com/donate. Here you go. 2 minutes. Go pee.
Hi, I'm Olivia Spear, host of The Dumb Show. For 3.5 years, we never asked for donations, but after Facebook demonetized us for speaking the truth, we've had to turn to the one thing big tech can't cancel: you.
I'm Hayden, Matt and Olivia's daughter. This show's never chased sponsors or sold out. We've built something honest, and it's thanks to you.
I'm Ethan, their son. Every share, every dollar, every message, you're the reason we can keep calling out the BS and bringing color back to the world going gray.
If you want to help, we take PayPal, Venmo, or snail mail. You can send it to P.O. Box 2, Round Hill, Virginia 20142.
Can't donate? No problem. Just share the show with someone who needs to hear it.
Thanks for helping us stay loud, proud, and completely uncensored. You can donate at thedumbshow.com/donate.
You know what happens when you turn the dial harder? You can make a harder grimace. The harder you grimace, the more effective it is.
You tighten it so frickin' I can't do it. I can't untighten
That's
it.
what she said.
That's what she's... Oof. Oof. Coming in with it. Pounded. You guys, listen to this little... This is actually Ethan's voice. It's not like a cartoon character, but it sounds like a doink in cartoons or something. This is actually him. Listen.
I can't untighten
That's
it.
what she said.
That's what she's... Oof. Oof. Coming in with it. Pounded. Pounded. Pound.
Child
For you.
is 15.
Ethan, you look like a hippie.
Totally tubular.
You know this is recording, right?
Okay, let's go. Smile. Donate. Don't start with me. Donations. Every time you don't smile, I'm gonna punch you in the ribs. Donations. Take one. Scene one. Ready. Set. Ethan.
Break.
Ready. Don't screw it up.
Okay.
Ethan, don't mess this up. Ready. Set. Action. No. Whoa. Director calls action, not some stupid toddler.
But we've built something
There's no
honest.
but there. Why do you've been doing it since you were 2 years old. Try it again.
Just share the show with someone who needs to hear it.
He's so much better than you at everything.
Better at
Hayden, he's just like, even, it's just, go ahead, Hayden.
Thanks for helping us stay loud, proud, and completely uncensored.
That's a wrap. Well done, Spear family. I bet we make no money.
But I'm gonna owe them money without.
Hayden, do your thing again.
Oh, yeah, cut it.
Baby shark, doo 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 doo.
We had fun making it. We appreciate you watching it. Not like you have a choice, but I hope you enjoyed your pee break. Folks, if you haven't had a chance, thedumbshow.com/donate. We are funded entirely by you, which means that we don't have corporate sponsors, so you get the truth from us, and nobody pays us. We don't give a shit about money from Qatar. We don't care about money from Israel. We don't care about money from the Democrats or Republicans. We simply just tell you what's going on and give you the unadulterated truth. And the reason why we do that is because we believe that's what you want. Maybe you don't know it yet, but we believe that's what you want. Thomas Austin donated $21.10. I was supposed to do yard work. This is better. Good job. It is better. Thank you, brother. Here's the rest of the video. Give this a good listen because this is really where we start breaking down the B2 insertion. We're going to cover it tonight in depth with Leroy and I. Here you go.
Ranked from captain to colonel, and most were graduates of the Air Force Weapons School headquartered at Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. I will state for the record that there is no beach volleyball or football at the Air Force Weapons School. There were male and female aviators on this mission. And a crew member told me when I talked to them on video the other day that this felt like the Super Bowl, the thousands of scientists, airmen, and maintainers all coming together. One last story about people. When the crews went to work on Friday, they kissed their loved ones goodbye, not knowing when or if they'd be home. Late on Saturday night, their families became aware of what was happening. And on Sunday, when those jets returned from Whiteman, their families were there. Flags flying and tears flowing. I have chills literally talking about this. The jets rejoined into a formation of 4 airplanes followed by a formation of 3 and came up over.
Sorry to keep interrupting, folks, but we always do donations right when they happen to give people the recognition. Charity Lamb donated $21.10. Thanks for helping us understand, Matt. I'm proud of my country, my president. So am I, Charity. Thank you for your donation, folks. 7330 is where we're at. Once again, we try to get these as soon as we get them, and I don't have Olivia here or any tech, so I have to do it myself. So bear with me with the interruptions. I apologize.
Ed Whiteman proudly in the traffic pattern, pitching out to land right over the base and landing to the incredible cheers of their families who sacrifice and serve right alongside their family members. Like I said, there were a lot of flags and a lot of tears. One commander told me this is a moment in the lives of our families that they will never forget. That, my friends, is what America's Joint Force does. We think, we develop, we train, we rehearse, we test, we evaluate every single day. And when the call comes to deliver, we do so. I could not be more proud standing up here today of our joint force. I'm filled with gratitude that I get to tell their story. And as we stand here right now, our forces remain on a high state of readiness in the region, prepared to defend themselves.
Mark Carlson, I think maybe a new donor. Keep up the great work. God bless and thank you for your service. Mark Carlson, $20. Thank you, Mark. It means the world. We appreciate you.
And one last thing. Our adversaries around the world should know that there are other DTRA team members out there studying targets for the same amount of time. And will continue to do so. Thank you very much. I apologize for the length.
Listen to this line again. Talk about a veiled threat. If you ever want to know what a veiled threat is, here it is. And this is basically telling China, if they plan on using their coastal batteries to hit Taiwan, this is sending plenty of messages around the world that if you want to get froggy, we have the solution for you. We are the Batman to your Justice League. We've got all of the little hidden toys to make you inert. Listen to this again.
Around the world should know that there are other DTRA team members out there studying targets for the same amount of time, and we'll continue to do so. Thank you very much. I apologize for the length. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just...
All right, so Mr. Hegseth, SECDEF, is going to come in, and this is good. He actually takes questions from the press. He goes after Jennifer Griffith pretty hard. This is rare. Jennifer Griffith is essentially, if you guys take a look at, let's take a look at Top Gun and Charlie, codename Charlie, which is not Elizabeth Shue, but what's her face? Oh, I'm getting old. Doesn't matter. I got codename Charlie. What the hell's her name? Elizabeth Shue is Karate Kid, so she is. It's not Dana. It's See, this is this. I keep your brain going straight, folks. It's not Prevagen or some medicine you have to freaking dig out through all the cobwebs. Kirsty? No, it's Kirstie Alley. Christy McLaughlin, Mc something. It was Jodie Foster and her in a movie. Come on. It was Tom Cruise. It wasn't Elizabeth Shue. I actually met her. I met her. She was in Top Gun. Come on, the love interest with Tom Cruise. I don't know why I keep going back to Shue. It's not Shue. Oh, fuck, what was her name? It was McSomething. All right, A, B, C, D. Debbie, no. E, F, G, H, I, Julie. Kelly McGillis. Fuck. So Kelly McGillis, and one of the things they said is one of the best sources of intelligence comes from the civilian sector. This is a perfect example of Jennifer Griffith, is that she is very well respected from the three-letter agencies. When she worked for Fox, she left Fox, but she's about as high as you can go. And I truly believe that she has a clearance. She may not have TSSCI, but I think she's probably cleared for most top secret general knowledge, because what she knows is just, she says things that I'm like, oh yeah, she's read in. She speaks like an intelligence analyst, but she was a little circumspect about her coverage of this, and a little running with that it wasn't as effective. And I'm wondering if she's the source of the leak. Not in the sense that she leaked it, but she received it, or I don't know. I certainly don't want to make those accusations, because she has given me no reason to label her as such. But the way that Pete Hegseth responds to her today is pretty bad. Like, I've never heard anyone talk to her like that before. She's usually fairly well respected in the community, and especially in the IC community. So I just want to let you know, but here it is.
Thank you, by the way, for that extensive work, the lay down. I mean, even, do you have that laser pointer? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, squaring me away as always. I mean, even in just public reporting, you see the post-strike shaft of the three holes. The vast majority, and fairly so, the vast majority of speculation has been, those are the three strike points. When in actuality, what you realize is these are the vents, these are the caps. The first munition took the cap off, and the other five went down the center hole, which, if you're planning the target, you would want it to be the direct one going to the bottom. These are the types of things that go into the planning for a strike that the Pentagon would not expect the press corps or the American people to initially understand. So laying this information out is helpful. But it's also why we ask for a beat, for a moment, for a day or two, the opportunity to tell that story. Because as the chairman said, these men and women that did this mission, they just want to do their job. They're not expecting their story to be told.
Right.
They're not expecting the glory. They are grateful for the flags and the hugs of family. That's why they do the job. But they also know they were a part of something historic. We know how historic it was. The chairman does. I know. Our staffs know. And so that's why we are, and the president of the United States knows. And that's why it's almost personal when we see the way in which leaks are used to try to disparage the outcome or muddy the waters about the impact of what happened without being responsible with information and allowing the professionals to assess and provide that information just like the chairman did. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for that information. Sure. And we welcome a few additional questions.
Oh, here we go.
Yes, sir.
General, on Sunday you said final battle damage will take some time. And you also said, I think BDA is still pending, and it would be way too early for me to comment on what may or may not.
That's not his job. That's the IC's community.
Nuclear facility. So that was just over 3 days ago. So what has changed? Would you use the term obliterated as well?
Sure. Like I said, we don't do BDA. I'll refer that to the intelligence community.
Yep.
And
you're talking with them. I mean, what changed in the past 3 days that make you so, you know?
Sir, I think I
think I explained what changed. There was a great deal of irresponsible reporting based on leaks, preliminary information in low confidence. Again, when someone leaks something, they do it with an agenda. And when you leak a portion of an intelligence assessment, but just a little portion.
That's right.
Just a little portion that makes it seem like maybe the strike wasn't effective.
Correct.
Then you start a news cycle, whether it's the Washington Post or Fox News or CNN or MSNBC, you start a news cycle that starts to call into question the efficacy. No, that's why. So you bring the chairman here, who's not involved in politics. He doesn't do politics. That's my lane to understand and translate and talk about those types of things. So I can use the word obliterated. He could use defeat, destroyed, assess, all of those things. But ultimately, we're here to clarify what these weapons are capable of, which anyone with, 2 eyes, some ears, and a brain can recognize that kind of firepower.
So let me just. Pete's doing a great job, and certainly, listen, I had nothing to do with this strike. I don't know. I don't work for the United States government anymore. I have not been consulted. I have not even worked in any capacity since 2003 for the United States government in a civilian or military aspect. Does that mean that there's not a thumbprint? Of course there's a thumbprint. And if you ask the intelligence community and you go in and talk to people, my name is known, and it's not important. It's not emblazoned in a copper plaque. But there are people who are still working in the community, who know my name and know my impact in the community. It's a very tight-knit community. It's a small community. Intelligence is small as the SEALs. At any given time, there's only 1,000 active ISs. Usually there's only about 1,000 SEALs active. So it's a very tight community, okay? But what you guys need to understand is intelligence is not one facet of information and then you go and you call full joy. It's a series of probable outcomes based upon fact that is collected from multiple sources, whether it's human, ELINT, RADIANT, SIGINT, whatever it is, some form of intelligence. And all of those need to essentially co-op in order to have the building blocks for a conclusion. So in the first 24 hours, you have what is known as the fog of war. This is why Bongino says you wait 24. I follow the same practice. This I didn't, because I don't need to wait for the fog of war to clear, because I understand the weapon's capacity and the probability of outcome based upon its performance. And the only question I needed answered in order to give you the conclusions I did it go off? And if it went off, then this is a win. In every facet. If this thing would have only went to 50 feet, it still would have been successful and collapsed the entire fucking building. This is 7 tons of TNT times 6. That's 42 tons of 42,000 pounds of TNT. Take a look at Nagasaki. Take a look at the explosions of Oklahoma City. This rivaled Oklahoma City and was 3 times as more powerful. This was essentially with 40 or 50,000 pounds of bombs. This was you'd be looking at 10% the size of Nagasaki. A nuclear bomb, 10% the size of Nagasaki, went off underground with no containment. With the only thing stopping it is channeled tubes for this pressure wave to push through every chamber. I don't need any other confirmation other than that. However, before I would sit up there, I would say probability of 75% that these things are inaccessible and unusable for the next 3 to 4 years. But based upon the fact that I have other sources of intel, which would be collapse of tunnels and seeing the entry points, knowing the speed and velocity of how they were delivered, the accuracy, having the ventilation shafts, which pose very little resistance. Okay. And the first bomb would take out the 3 channels, which would leave the singular tube available to go ahead and load it up with 5 other bombs. There are just so many pieces of information from signals intelligence, from electronic intelligence, from comms intelligence, which is being radio traffic being monitored in Iran, hearing them talk about the results. Okay. There are so many other pieces of intelligence that are now compounding, making the probability of this higher and higher with every moment that passes, because every form of intelligence agency, whether it's the NRO or the DIA or the NIS or CIA, FBI, or anyone else who is involved in collecting data on this particular mission, and the ONI, Office of Naval Intelligence, all of these branches are coming together and providing more and more intelligence on top of what is already known. And this is the difference. But these simplistic pressers only say, well, there's got to be one piece of evidence. There's got to be one giant crib key. There's got to be one enigma wrapped in a riddle of a code breaker that explains that what is that piece? Well, without me opening up TSSCI compartmentalized information and giving you and reading you in, you're not going to be satisfied with my answer. And I don't have the time or inclination to sit up here and brief you on it on a national stage. We are here to tell you that based upon what we are showing you and giving you, it should be more than enough information to understand that the bombs went off, therefore that's gone. Because the probability of anything of that structure surviving based upon the physics of the bomb says that it's 0. What's the difference between TNT and C4? The way they explode. TNT, Anfro, Semtex, C4, whatever it is, they have different signatures of explosion. Some move extremely fast, which ultimately disintegrate and destroy a target like C4, where TNT moves extremely slow, but has a larger sound pressure wave that rips and shreds through a target. Penetration level is lower because of the overall speed, but has a propensity to do more damage inside of structures. So for instance, like a 22 bullet, it can be more damaging than a 5.56. If a 22 gets in the chest cavity, it will bounce around multiple times, entering and re-entering organs, and will do more internal damage. Where a 5.56 moves much faster and completely just explodes the bone and the blood vessels in the body and the cartilage and the muscle and the sinew. And if it hits the right area, will do an incredible amount of damage. But if you ask anybody, would you rather take a 5.56 that goes clean through the body in the midsection, doesn't hit stomach or liver or kidneys, or would you rather have a 22? I think most people will tell you a 5.56 clean through is going to do less damage than a 22 bouncing around inside the cavity because it doesn't have the re-exit power that it does upon entry. So to answer your question, explosives do move at different rates, have a different propensity of speed, different sound waves, and they tear, rip, or shred differently. And depending upon certain situations, more are effective than others. Here's the rest. By the way, folks, we have 9330. I didn't have a whole lot of hope that we were going to hit 300 today because I know we have the show tonight. But if we can break that 150 mark, we'll at least pay for the show. So see if you can help us out, folks. We'd appreciate you. Here you go.
That specificity at that location and others is going to have a devastating effect. So we all recognize there will be days and weeks ahead. That's why yesterday I said, if you want to know what's going on at Fordo, you better go there and get a big shovel, because no one's under there right now. No one's under there able to assess, and everyone's using reflections of what they see. And that's why the Israelis, the Iranians, the IAEA, the UN, to a man and to a woman who recognize the capability of this weapon system, are acknowledging how destructive it's been. So that's what's changed.
Just 3 or 4 days later.
He already answered you.
This is a
he
point.
Answered you.
This is how difficult it is to actually manage. You just watched a video.
You know what? I'm sorry. I don't mean to interrupt. I know you guys want to watch the rest of this conference. We're going to get to the whole thing. I don't care if we make our goal or not. But this is why I want to be a part of the White House press corps. Because you know what I would say? Mr. Hegseth, you have given accolades, and General Caine have given accolades to the servicemen and servicewomen of this country. And you are obviously standing up there taking pretty much zero credit for any of this. But there have been strong rumors of you and horrible comments about you being an alcoholic and a philanderer and things that were meant to be brought up to destroy your credibility and General Caine's. Just if you could take one moment to reflect on what this means to you personally as an American, but also as the Secretary of Defense of this country, single-handedly the war leader of this country. Do you feel that this vindicates you in the eyes of the general public? And if not, what could it possibly take? And sit back and just let him fucking cook. And that gives him an open door to seem magnanimous. Because you know what people say? This isn't about me. This isn't about one person. This is about the team. This is about the mission. This is about the people who defend this country. Of course, all of those things. But it gives him an opportunity to say, I will not be vindicated until Americans are safe and every enemy of the United States is eradicated from this planet. Boom. Because that's what he would say. And that's the fucking answer. That's what's going to sell a newspaper. That's what's going to get you a click. But they don't ask the right question. And the next time that I need to ask a question that isn't kind of set up to allow Pete Hegseth to gain a little face, but also give credibility to the United States Armed Forces, and I do decide to lean into him a little bit, he's going to at least respect me enough to know that I can see the forest through the trees. This is the difference between the media corps of today, is they are not interested in the answer. They are only interested in him fucking up. That's why I get frustrated with this corps. That's why I don't think any of them should have passes. I don't think they've earned the right to be there. And I believe, maybe not me, but there's citizen journalists out there who have experience in this type of thing who should be invited to this. I should be sitting in that room. Leroy should be sitting in that room today because this is our bread and butter. This is what we do, and we can ask the right questions. And the secondary question I would ask is, I understand the GBU-57AB is the primary weapon system that you use, but there have been rumors of a 45,000 edition. I've heard it in the IC. I've heard it on the channels. Can you confirm or deny? Is there another, and I certainly don't want you to confirm the size, but was there another weapon used that is not being disclosed to the open public in this for assured destruction and success of this mission? That is what I would ask. And he's either going to say, I'm not going to go into specifics about what ordinance was used, which you know immediately that he already has. Or second, he's going to say, the weapon systems that we used were classified and unclassified and will be released to the public in due time. But as of right now, the specificity of what bombs were used are the GBU-57 and Tomahawks with various types of tips in order to achieve mission success. He also answered the question, because I know there's a 45K version of a GBU that is unnamed that was used in this raid. I know that for a fact. So questions are important and they should be asked that are designed to learn. They're designed to educate the public. These questions are designed to make Donald Trump look bad and to try to get Pete Hegseth to say something stupid, and it makes me sick. They've earned no right to be in that room.
This weapon is capable of. That's where we find our confidence, is in the skill of men and women and the capability of the systems they employed, and the recognition so far in the reflections that it was a highly successful mission.
Sure, I think you could, I'd say go out. The IC should be able to help you answer that question.
Yep.
They look at a variety, as the Secretary has alluded to, we look at a variety of things. I don't do that. They do. All different sources of intel, which I'd refer you to them to get clarity on the end state.
So again, I go back to the IC, whether it's Director Radcliffe or ODNI Gabbard. I read the statements at the beginning. They're the ones aggregating the intelligence, and they're saying nuclear facilities were destroyed and would have to be.
No, Kerry, I've applied for the White House press corps. I don't expect to get it. They give it to Tim Pool. So, I don't know.
Built over a number of years. Facilities were destroyed. What do we got right here?
So you cited a body of credible intelligence to suggest that the damage at Fort O and other places.
Why don't you listen to Radcliffe?
I was reading from the CIA director's statement, which came out last night. CIA, again, they do the BDA, they do the assessment. CIA can confirm that a body of credible intelligence indicates, it also goes on to say, new intelligence from historically reliable and accurate sources and methods. Now, you can imagine the CIA director is going to be very careful about how he articulates things of that sensitivity. Classified, secret, top secret, compartmentalized. He's going to know things that you're not going to know, that the press isn't going to know. And he's reflecting that the sources he's seeing are highly credible. They've given credible intelligence. They or those processes have given credible intelligence in the past. And that's what he's basing it on.
You think we need to see that?
No.
Do you have a top secret clearance, sir?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. The American public wants
Yes,
to
sir.
see it.
It doesn't.
Yes.
I wanted to ask briefly.
All right. So the answer to that question is the American public is not who I respond to. They're not my boss. The Secretary of Defense does not work for the American people. The Secretary of Defense works for the President of the United States. He has no responsibility to brief the public of anything. And thank you, sweetheart. Is I would release and say that right now is the information that you're receiving right now is what we deemed you're worthy of understanding. I don't have an obligation to you. I don't have to do this briefing. We're doing this out of consideration and to celebrate a mission success and the men and women of the armed forces. But my obligation is not to inform you of anything that we don't feel necessary. And your need to know is you don't need to know. That's it. What a stupid question. Matt says, Matt, the Pentagon press staff literally took notes from you and Leroy's breakdown Tuesday. I don't know if that's true, but I'll tell you what, we got it right, and that's all that matters. All we care about is being right. We don't care about money or fame or anything else, and if we only show it to 10,000 people, then fuck it. Who cares? We would love 10 million people to watch this, but people don't have the temperance for this. They want their quick hits. They don't want something explained to them for 2 hours. They want to get their 2-minute soundbite and pretend that they know what the fuck they're talking about. We don't do that here.
No, not you. Checkered shirt.
Oh, so Mike Glenn with the Washington Times.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, sir. Anybody who's ever read a Battalion S2 report after a fight knows that it's usually, the initial report is usually wrong, sometimes grossly so.
Yep.
Has this what happened in this incident caused y'all to
sort
of
the media.
rethink the intelligence process or the dissemination, or do you think it's just a matter, I mean, if the process itself doesn't require any more adjustment?
Well, I can tell you what the chairman told me in the Situation Room and reminded us all, which is alongside what you just said, sir, is that the first reports are almost always wrong.
Yes,
They're almost always incomplete, right?
Yes, they are.
Anything, whether it's a squad level operation or a strategic level operation, the initial reflections you get are coming at you at a high rate of speed from a lot of different sources. So your job is to step back and assess them. And that's why we're urging caution about premising entire stories on biased leaks to biased publications trying to make something look bad. How about we take a beat, recognize first the success of our warriors, hold them up, tell their stories, celebrate that, wave an American flag, be proud of what we accomplished. And in the meantime, I can assure you, the chairman and his staff, the intelligence community, our staff and others are doing all the assessments necessary to make sure that mission was indeed successful. Yes, right there.
Sir, thank you, Mr. Secretary. Iran has recognized that their nuclear program was indeed severely damaged, but they also said that the U.S. strikes only strengthened their ability and their determination to complete their nuclear program. How do you respond to that, sir? Is that a provocation from Iran?
Well, I would say Iran's going to have to say a lot of things right now in order to bolster their image, especially internally. You know, in the media, there's a lot of things they'll say for domestic consumption. But we're watching very closely what they do. Again, that's the intel community. Our job as the chairman, I mean, the chairman laid it up so
Matt
beautifully.
Howard
Our
has
job is to be
donated
prepared.
$770 and says
And how
whole
proud
number
are
looks
you? How
better.
proud
Indeed
am
it
I?
does.
I
101
didn't
for
know
the
full
101st
story
Airborne,
of those
folks.
men and women 15 years ago who've been pointing at that target.
Karen.
That makes me proud to be an American. That's an awesome story. I hope we can tell more aspects of that in an unclassified way in the future. That's a great thing to know. Our job is to be prepared when the commander-in-chief calls based on those assessments. So, of course, our IC, the Intelligence Committee, will keep watching what Iran does and pay attention to that. But the president has created the contours, the opportunity for a deal, for peace, in something that the world said was intractable, that wasn't possible. And we got that peace, that ceasefire, that option because of strength, because of his willingness to use American military might that no one else on the planet can do with the kind of...
I want to thank the 430 on Twitter, and thanks Facebook for throttling us and YouTube. We always appreciate you guys. Thanks for joining.
There's public imagery available saying that highly enriched uranium was moved out of Fordo before the strikes. Is that accurate? Have you seen that? And Mr.
Yes, Mel, good job,
Chairman,
guys.
a question for
Girls.
you. Have you been pressured to change your assessment or give a more rosy intelligence assessment to us by any political factors, whether it's the president or the secretary? And if you were, would you
Matt,
do that?
thank you for helping too.
Well,
y'all.
that one's easy. No, no, I have not, and no, I would not. My job as the chairman is to offer a range of options to the president and the National Command Authority to deliver the risks associated with each of those, and then take the orders of the National Command Authority and go execute them. I've never been pressured by the president or the secretary to do anything other than tell them exactly what I'm thinking, and that's exactly what I've done.
And the highly enriched uranium?
There's nothing that I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all...
All right, this is Jennifer Griffith, folks, and this is the one that I wanted you guys to watch because this is where they go off on her pretty hard. And she defends herself. There's no doubt. I like Jennifer Griffith. I think sometimes her information is a little political, but most of the time she stays out of the fray. By the way, we are the third largest channel right now. Fox News at 8.3 thousand, 31,000 for Governor DeSantis. Those are two big ones, but we're at 469. Mike Barron, our good friend, comic writers at 90. Good to see Mike Barron so high. But these are people with thousands of followers, millions of followers. We don't have that, but 469 is pretty impressive. Thank you on Twitter. If you have not followed and liked the show, please do so. It means the world to us if you could just give us a follow. I know some content creators don't care about that, but even one makes a difference for us. We're always trying to grow. This is Jennifer Griffith. We're going to replay this part right here. I want you to really listen because this gives us some understanding of what possibly Pete Hegseth is really pissed at her. And listen.
Highly enriched uranium was in...
And the highly enriched uranium?
There's nothing that I've seen that suggests that we didn't hit exactly what we wanted to hit in those locations.
It's about highly enriched uranium. Do you have certainty that all the highly enriched uranium was inside the Fordo mountain, or some of it, because there were satellite photos that showed more than a dozen trucks there 2 days in advance? Are you certain none of that highly enriched uranium was moved?
Of course, we're watching every single aspect, but Jennifer, you've been about the worst. The one who misrepresents the most intentionally. What the president says. I'm familiar.
About the ventilation shafts on Saturday night, and in fact, I was the first to describe the B-2 bombers, the refueling, the entire mission
No,
with
you weren't.
great accuracy. So I take issue with that.
I appreciate you acknowledging
You
that
have
this was the
issues.
first the most successful mission based on operational security that this department has done since you've been here, and I appreciate that. So
Absolutely.
we're looking at all aspects of intelligence and making sure we have a sense of what was where.
Why not acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission?
Come
The
on.
early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
So when I say something like our boys and bombers, see, this is the kind of thing the press does, right? Of course, the chairman mentioned a female bomber pilot. That's fantastic. She's fantastic. She's a hero. I want more female bomber pilots. I hope the men and women of our country sign up to do such brave and audacious things. But when you spin it as, because I say our boys and bombers as a common phrase, I'll keep saying things like that, whether they're men or women. Very proud of that female pilot, just like I'm very proud of those male pilots. And I don't care if it's a male or a female in that cockpit, and the American people don't care. But it's the obsession with race and gender in this department that's changed priorities. And we don't do that anymore. We don't play your little games. Yes, right there.
Uranium was removed from the facility before the B-2 struck.
So I'm not aware of any intelligence that I've reviewed that says things were not where they were supposed to be, moved or otherwise. Yes.
Kelly Meyer with News Nation, and just off the top, want to say we're grateful for the service of these pilots and everybody that serves. I wanted to ask you, the CIA statement said, when possible, they will provide updates and information to the public for transparency, and I believe that's what we're looking for here.
Hi, Vicky. Good to see you back 2 nights in a row. We've missed you. Good to have you back. Listen. So Griffith was not the first person to report on the B-2s and their refueling tactics and the head fake. I vehemently disagree with her. Now, she might be saying that she was the first one in the legacy media, but there were plenty of other channels who were talking about it, and not just me, but other channels were talking about it. As far as the strike capabilities and the bomb package and the head fake and the route that the B-2s took, the overall packing of the tunnels and the ventilation systems, that was reported by us. Nobody else did that. That is a lie. And she was not talking about that. She may have reported the trucks, but she was reporting that the fission material was removed. We vehemently denied that there was any evidence or intelligence that the removal of fission material or that the centrifuges were moved, that this was the dump trucks were all facing towards tunnels, facing towards the ventilation system. The bulldozers, we showed you photographs that we showed you days before the ventilation systems being reinforced. All of that intelligence came from the Don't Unfriend Me show. Nobody fucking else was talking about that. That is a complete abortion of the truth. So I will sit here and say that the B-2 movement, we reported it. We talked about Guam at first, and then as soon as we knew that they were in country and that they had successfully executed their sortie, we released the information that we knew was a head fake, and we told everybody about that. Multiple reporters did that, including Miss Griffith. But for her to sit here and claim that she uncovered the true intent of the trucks, that is a complete lie. She went with the story that it was enriched uranium being removed as a hypothetical, and that those trucks were there to disassemble the centrifuges and remove them. That is a lie, which that is what she said, and that is not true. There was no indication or any intelligence that they had. There was no rads coming from trucks. It was reported by us before anyone else that those dump trucks were 1 kilometer away with actual bulldozers carving into looser rock. You could tell by the thermal imaging. You could also tell by the topographical maps that was more sand-based, which means that erosion had taken place, that the rocks were not there, that there was probably a riverbed at some point running through that area. But either way, there was loose earth, and that it was stacked up 6 feet column high against trucks who were beds that were about 4.5, 5 feet, and they did not have a scoop to put that into the trucks, that there were more likely people with shovels. We told you about the concrete barriers that would be put in the entrance, and dirt was packed into the tunnels and moved into the tunnels. That is what we said. We are the ones that told you that. So for her to sit here and take credibility for that is bullshit. I can say after building test bunkers back in the 80s for testing those bombs, it's accurate to the penetration and damage. But on the note, understand they are downplaying the penetration and what is created in the aftermath being an artificial earthquake and magnitude matters. I don't know what else to say to that. That's it.
Do you commit to share the Defense Intelligence Agency report when it is ready, so the American people can understand more about the intelligence assessment?
Well, actually, the report that was discussed, this preliminary report, was what's called a restrike report. So it comes to us to give us an assessment whether a target would need to be restruck, right? That's the reason why. So it's based on internal feedback loop that we're supposed to have access to. Unfortunately, someone took advantage.
Evelyn says, you did discuss with Leroy and the dump trucks and speculate on what was being done. Any more news on that? Yeah, I was right. That's it. They were not there to offload uranium. They were not there to disassemble centrifuges. They were putting in concrete columns down into the shaft and packed with dirt. They were putting concrete 8 to 10 foot by 3 foot cylindrical cement shafts as almost that they would put dividers in for highway with rebar and reinforced, and then packing them full of dirt in order to make some sort of barricade for the entrances. They were not being used to hold the structures up. They're not tall enough. Some of those channels are 20 feet, 25 feet where those centrifuges are spinning. This was used to reinforce the entry points and the weak points of the structure. They had assessment. I think that's where the Chinese officials came in. Chinese officials were obviously have their own teams that can do underground assessment, just like the United States. I believe they got Chinese nationals out of there that were located at these facilities, also helping with centrifuges, helping with rocket technology, all of this other stuff, got them out. I don't believe they brought anything in. And I don't believe they had the time period to disassemble or move uranium. If they did, once again, these were under Hawks. ISR was there the entire last 3 months. And for the last 12 days, the airspace has been dominated by Israel. I do not believe Iran got weapons-grade uranium out. I don't believe they had enough time to spin those up. And if they would, I promise you this, it wouldn't have required this. They would have used their intelligence sources to pop a vest or plant C4 or sabotage like they have been doing for the last 35 years in these places. Everyone keeps saying, well, the Jews keep saying that, well, they're days away. They're days away. They've said it like 10 times. It's like global warming. What happened directly after that? Israelis would launch a preemptive strike. They would do sabotage. They would use computer hacking to overload the centrifuges. Israel has constantly degraded Iran's capability. They could not keep up with it. With 9 facilities, Israel lacked the capability to reach these areas, and human sources of sabotage and computer technology were no longer viable. So what did it take? The United States getting involved. These things are not difficult to figure out if you just listen to what's being said on the national stage. But that's what happened, Evelyn. Yep, we're on 700 in Twitter now. Actually, we're 779. It's awesome. It's so great to see.
But whatever is supposed to be made public will be, but whatever has to stay sensitive.
Sir, can I just jump in? You know, one of the things that I'm trying to do through this journey that we're on together, of course, transparency, but also the requirement to really protect these capabilities. I guess the time's up. So there's a balance in there, right? We do need to preserve options should the nation and the joint force be tasked to go do something again. So I'm confident.
Folks, we are running out of time. If you have not had a chance to donate to the show, I will tell you to run these shows for this long, couple of hours, usually take a few, $150 or so. We're at 101. We would really appreciate it if you have the chance to donate. I know you want to save for tonight, but remember, we're trying to do morning shows and evening shows, but we have to make it profitable so we can go ahead and continue to broadcast and make it efficient. So if you have a chance, please help us out. Thanks.
Find the middle ground, but there are some things that if asked, I want to not release related to.
So we're going to leave it right there. I want to thank the heroism of our men and women in the military. What they accomplished is truly historic. Setting back the Iranian nuclear program, untold number of years. It was a devastating attack. We appreciate you covering it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Talk a little bit more about the role, sir. Taking the press conference, it lasted about 45 minutes, and I think you want to make it clear.
So, to be honest with you, folks, I don't have much else to say. I mean, we want to break down the B-2 insertion and how it was done. And a lot of people are asking, well, how come they weren't picked up on radar? Well, we can walk through some of those things without revealing too much. But this is one we want to put a bow on. Now, is it possible that they dig into these areas and somehow recover key technology that survived? Sure. But folks, I want you just to think about one thing. I want you to just do me a favor. I want you to imagine that we're at whatever room you're in right now. It doesn't matter whether it's a dining room or kitchen or living room or bedroom. I want you to imagine that you just lit it on fire and light it on fire for 20 seconds. Okay? And just gasoline, 20 seconds, and then it goes out. What would survive in your room, if anything? These underground bunkers did not have halon. They didn't have any AFFF fire suppression. And even if they did, everything was destroyed. This flashed to 1,200 to 1,500 degrees in a second. The concussive force of the explosion destroyed anything and weakened the integrity 6 times over with multiple redundancies. So every time a bomb entered and went off, the resistance factor became more and more degraded. And every wall was weakened. So now I want you to, instead of just burning for 20 seconds, I want you to times it by 6, and I want you to burn 120 seconds. Now what would be remain? Nothing. Everything's gone. Everything's devastated. That's a fire. You're talking about 7,000 pounds of TNT. that answers your question. So do I believe that Iran is saying whatever Iran wants to in order to save? Of course they are. What do you expect them to say? We're fucked. They got it all. No, they're going to. Do you know Iranian news is saying that the United States and Israel has surrendered to Iran? They're saying that too. Do we want to give that credibility? They're saying they rang holy hellfire on all American and Israeli bases. Do you want to go ahead and give that credibility? It always amazes me when somebody says Al Jazeera reporting or Iranian media or Ukraine TV. Folks, there's a reason why Ukraine does not have an intelligence apparatus that is considered on the world platform. That is not even remotely close to SKW or SWW or MI6 or Mossad or the CIA or any other intelligence apparatus, JIB, none of them. And there's a reason why Iran is not considered to be and to have an intelligence apparatus that is worth noting is because they're not worth noting. So I'm not going to listen to Iran media. I'm not going to listen to our media. What I'm going to listen to is physics. I'm going to listen to probability. I'm going to listen to blast wave. I'm going to listen to primary explosion. I'm going to listen to the quality of concrete that was used. I'm going to listen to ventilation shafts, which provide essentially a pathway right into this facility. And if this facility was truly remarkable, the ventilation system would have been 10 times further away than the size of the facility to begin with. But they don't have the money to channel it that far. They don't have the technology and the power structure to ensure that those ventilation systems. But I can tell you this, I can tell you NORAD's ventilation systems are nowhere close to NORAD. And there's a reason why. This is what happens when you nickel and dime your impervious bunker centrifuge nuclear reactor site. And I will accentuate the point that you don't put something 250 feet below ground with good intentions. You just don't. So that's pretty much it. So folks, donations were pretty short of what we were hoping for. This is why we didn't do the AM shows to begin with, is because we couldn't afford to do them anymore, because the bandwidth and the overall time that we put into it takes away from other sources. At a minimum, we want to try to hit that 150 to break even. But just to let everybody know, we're going to try to bring morning shows into the fold. But if we can't, if we've got 1,000 people on Twitter and we can't generate a few dollars just to keep the show going, it doesn't make any sense to continue. So it's okay. We've got our evening show. We do very, very well here, but we've got to find a way to continue to drive during the AM hours too, if we're going to continue the show. So we'll play with it. We'll see. But the thing is when you look at Benny, I mean, he's got stars. We don't have stars. Facebook won't give us stars, so we can't raise money. Do a shorter show tonight. Why? So we make less money, Ginger? No, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't run a shorter show tonight because then we make even less. You can't do that. You have to continue to do what works, and if we don't stay on the air. So no, we have to. So we can't do a shorter show. So it comes down to, we'll continue to try to do the AM shows, but honestly, it's better for us to do a reel, and hope that it goes viral, or hope that it catches enough looks where we get advertising. So we've always been open and honest with you folks, but Benny has stars, we don't. Charlie Kirk has sponsors. Ben Shapiro has sponsors. We don't have those. We have our good friends over at Wimkin, wimkin.com, who we love. And if you have not registered with 9 million users, they are amazing. They actually pay you for if you bring your usership over. If you happen to be an account that has, 1,000, 10,000 people, they pay you for that each month. They're an amazing free speech network. Go over to wimkin.com and sign up. But we ultimately, this is our STARS program. And how we do it is we open it up to the users, and we come on 5 nights a week. We want to do more. We want to do AM shows. But once again, now we got to go write articles or do a shorter show. And the time is just not there to do that when we're 2.5 hours in. And, we make $100. It's appreciated. We love people who do that. But ultimately what will happen is tonight, the evening show will suffer, and we'll have to stay on for 3.5, 4 hours to make up for it. So we've got to find a way to continue to grow, but also support the show in a way that if you ask yourself, well, let's see, I watch 10 hours a week. So I watch 40 hours a month. Well, you pay Netflix $16, or you pay Disney, or you pay Amazon or iTunes. Are you watching those shows as much as you watch us? And if you don't, well, can you justify giving $15 and saying, here you go? So those are the things that we have to balance. And those are the things that we have to understand. So anyway, we'll be back tonight. We appreciate you. 895 is what we wound up having on, which is fantastic. 830 on Twitter. Facebook is throttling us once again, and plus Benny's on, and all the other Facebook channels are on, and that draws away from our show. So we want to say thank you for watching. We'll see you guys later tonight at 7 o'clock, and we hope that you can join us. All right, goodbye.
Adjusting transmitter output.
This is the Don't Unfriend Me Show with your hosts, Matt, Leroy, Amy, and Olivia. Geopolitics, military analysis, and election coverage. Coming to you live on all major social media channels at The Dumb Show. Honest, direct, unfiltered. We can agree, we can disagree. Just don't unfriend me.